to the final shir of the series of Chazara on Taharas Hamishpacha. And to a certain degree, this shir is a very important one. We know that David HaMelech says his hands, Hidurim b'shilya, just to be metar isha l'bayla, and that's what our Rabbanim are here for. And the Hashkafa are there to afterwards she should be Ritzuya al-bayla k'yem k'nisasa l'chuppah. And then comes the time that there's man Taharasa. And we're going to focus on that time. There are halachas that are again those times. And there's a very important aspect to life, if not the most important aspect, which is shalom bayis, peace in the home, which sets the tone for everything that happens in the house. I'll start by saying that your investment in coming here tonight, and I'm assuming all those that are together with us virtually, are taking the time. Everyone's married, it's geared to men, and are taking the time. It's an investment that cannot be valued. The time, any time, money, effort one invests in shalom bayis is an investment in his shlichus in his life. Let me say, I haven't seen anybody that's been matzliach to do beyond the day-to-day if he doesn't have the support of his better half, of his Rebbetzin. And that's the way the Eibishter created, as the Zohar says, she's a plag gufa, and together they're able to conquer the world. But it takes investment on the husband's end. What the woman has to invest, they have their shiurim. And what I would say is that it's not only an investment in the hatzlacha and your shlichus and everything and anything you do, it's an investment in your children. Okay? When you come into a house, there's sometimes a house where there's a pleasant atmosphere, where it's a happy place. It's sometimes startling to imagine and to know that these things start really from the yachas of the husband and the wife. When the husband and the wife are in the place they're supposed to be, with the relationship and the connection they're meant to have, this affects the entire home, and this affects the chinuch. This affects their children, banim, bnei banim. When you look at a child, it's pretty apparent if the two pillars of his life are strong and there's a bond between them, the child is gesund. He's able to see past himself and learn, take in new information, grow in Torah v'yira. Masha enkin when Rahman al-Atzlan, there's fighting. So it's not that way. So every effort and investment, kidaihi, as you see in many, many letters, endless letters of the Rebbe, and So what I'm going to start by saying, I'll start by discussing one of the most important parts of shalom bayis, and it may be the hardest part, is dedicating time. Oina literally means time. We're going to begin with shalom bayis, and then we'll get later to the outcome of shalom bayis, which is Hashkafa. So dedicating time is very important. So when someone heard I'm giving this shir, he said it's a pretty interesting choice for the person to give the shir on shalom bayis, the person that's never home. Okay, so if I'm never home, so it's like taking Rabbi Akiva and Rachel as an example for wonderful shalom bayis, that he bought her what is it called, Yerushalayim Shel Zav. He bought her a keser, and after 12 years and then 24 years, wonderful example for shalom bayis. But I'm going to use it as a very interesting starting point, because I think it's very important to note there's nobody that can get away without dedicating time to his wife. However, how that time is spent will decide how long she needs of his time. I'll say the following. I'll give an example, If you think that the amount of time you're home and if you're always available, do you think that's the solution to giving her time and giving her a need? No, not necessarily. That means you being home and readily available all the time is not the solution to what she needs. And adrabah, there's even a benefit for you not being home all the time, for her to look forward and for her to look up to you that you're busy with things. And it's critical that she look up to you, because the way the Eibishter designed the world, there's a mashpia and there's a makabel. And to be a makabel, you have to be makabel something. Now that doesn't mean you have to be a Rosh Yeshiva, it doesn't mean you have to be a Rav, doesn't mean you have to be... looking up to a person is character, is who he is, and therefore we have to make sure we invest in our own avodas Hashem also for her. But the point I'm making for starters is it's not the amount of time you're home that will fill her need for oina, for time. What it is it's she doesn't need your time as much as she needs to know you're with her. Okay? You can have a person come home and he sits and he's dedicated, he sits down, and hört sich zu, and hört sich zu weiter. And after an hour, she says, "You're not with me. You're not spending enough time with me, and you're crawling out of your skin. I'm here all the time. I hear this all the time. I hear this type of times, right? I'm here. And then I would venture to say that if you come home, and this is the tzir, if you come home and you want to sit down, this is two people that come home. Okay? A person comes home and he busies himself with something he needs to. He goes to check his phone, and he sits down and he wants a cup of water and a vil menuchsa nefesh, and she wants to talk to him. So she gave him noch, and please wait. And then it can stretch a long time that he actually does listen to her, and she doesn't feel that he's with her. Mashenkin, if a person comes home, take this tzir, okay? Person comes home, the first thing he wants to hear how her day is. How her day went, and he asks her, "Nu zog noch, tell me more." After 5 minutes, she'll say, "Nu, and how was your day?" She felt she got the nakuda. So the point is not necessarily, she got the nakuda that you're with her, that you care, and in that case, it's not even the kamos of time. With much less time, you reach the nakuda. Okay? And I'll bring a simple example for this. Okay? The Rebbe says there's a half an hour a day a person has to think about the chinuch of his children. So that's if you have one child. What happens if you have 2 children? So it becomes an hour. And if you have 5 children, so it's 2.5, the whole day he'll be sitting and thinking about his kinder. The pshat is not more time. It's in that half an hour to reach the root, to reach the nekudas hadavar. To be there completely, it's an inyan of pnimius, but when you're there that time, she gets her need, and you won't need to be there so much more. You should appreciate spending time with your wife, but the necessity and the nagging is there. It's a even haboichin for you, whether you reached that nekuda, whether you made yourself completely available to her. And a very powerful, just a nekuda that I noticed, I don't know if you know, it wasn't so long ago, a few years ago, Dr. Weiss, a doctor that worked with the Rebbe, Tavshin Lamed Ches, so he said this amazing gilui. He said that when the Rebbe was about to go home, Rosh Chodesh Kislev, if I'm not mistaken, so he asked the Rebbe like how the Rebbe feels. Finally, after him accompanying the Rebbe and working with the Rebbe, he asked, how does the Rebbe feel now that the Rebbe could finally go home? So the Rebbe expressed himself. The Rebbe said that finally he's able to drink tea with the Rebbetzin. And the Rebbe said that there's a half an hour a day, every day, that he drinks tea with the Rebbetzin, and for him it's as nageya as putting on tefillin. All the groiser shalom bayis mevinim went ballistic. Okay, this has been, I don't know if you remember that tkufa, but everyone was talking about this guy. Something of the tzushtel of putting on tefillin and the half an hour, I was trying to figure it out. It was Megavan Kentik from somewhere. So I remind myself, the Rebbe says that the half an hour of investing in chinuch b'nei beisai is as chashuv as putting on tefillin. But the Rebbe was speaking about time with the Rebbetzin. So I searched the Makar, and I want to tell you something phenomenal. This quote that's brought in Hayom Yom is brought kama pamim in the Friedrich Rebbe's letters, and more then it's brought in regards to chinuch bnei beisai. It's brought up. The lashon is chinuch beisai ubnei beisai. It's mamash hayra from the Frierdiker Rebbe that this and this lashon of putting on that it says chashav as putting on tefillin is from the Frierdiker Rebbe. That's pashta pshat beisai. The Rebbe quoted in Hayom Yom a different quote, one of the quotes. But as we see from this story, it's critically important because at the end of the day, a person, he is only half of the story. Him and his wife together, giving her this time and building this yachas and making sure you're on the same page, as we'll see onward, is the yisoid, the foundation of the chinuch in your home, the yisoid and foundation of your avodas Hashem. And the tzir, we know that the dayan shmegadlas is b'neinu l'toira, being on the same page. It's enough that our wives, they're megadol our children. Getting her on the same page with you, it requires you investing in this shalom bayis and in this shutfus. So, now, be'etzem, this is not just a nice thing. Chiv Oina happens to be a mitzvah. And we know that, if you're looking in the booklet for a second, the Chiv Oina, it's in page, I don't know if you have the numbers here, but Chiv Oina, it's on page 4, where it's brought Lagabe Amma Ivriya, that if Im Libnoy Yodena Hamishpacha Yasala, he has to relate to her like any wife. And there the Torah says, what is Mishpat Abanas? She'era ksusa v'nasala yigra. Okay? Her food, her ksus, and her time, which is their marital relationships, the relations he's not allowed to diminish. Okay? And it's brought on the end, if you look lower down in Shulchan Aruch Chaim Siman Reish Mem, that Oina does not just apply as we know it based on his job, that he has achrayus towards her. Rather, any time it becomes a chiyuv. He's chayiv lefakta. It's a halacha. To the extent that Taharas Yisrael brings that if a person, for example, it's supposed to be from Tanugei Shabbos, and the suggested amount is 2 to 3 times a week. This is already from the Mild Staka. The Mild Staka is in the time of the Baal Shem Tov. Already said, kinas, for 2 reasons, the suggested is 2 times a week at least, right? 2 or 3 times, what people say. Either it's named Shemkanas B'Yerech HaBerta, or to be Magdir himself because of the pritzas, but it's a chiyuv, and therefore if a person missed Shabbos, the Taharas Yisrael brings that he should be mashlamit at a different time. And if he sees he won't be able on Shabbos, he should be makdim. It's a chiyuv. And it's important to note that this is a chiyuv, because that frames the Maisa, as we'll see onward, to be a heilig gezach. But in addition to it being a mitzvah, it's your achrayus. You put it into the ksuba. You're committed also. So, I'm going to dedicate a little bit of time to, in shalom bayis, to a specific area that comes up again and again, for a husband and a wife to be on the same page in their level of kedusha, of Yerushalayim, standards in their home. Okay? So it's very important. I'm going to say this, it's a little bit, should be a little bit not such a chiddush for chassidim, but I'm going to say it anyways. Pnimius, for a person to be real, is critical in a relationship with a husband and wife. Ve'adraba, she's your mirror, how emes you are. And the reason for that is, she knows you in a way that nobody else knows you, in a very, very deep way. And anything, being that she knows you in such a deep level, you have to be emes for her to be able to respect you. If she knows you don't really care about things, Rahman al-Islam, she doesn't have that respect, because you need to get more respect than an average person that doesn't know you on the type of level that she knows you. That's Aleph. But even more than that, I'm going to say something pashut. If, let's say, a person davening with a minyan is a yisoid choit v'lo yaver, learning Rambam is a choit v'lo yaver, whatever it is in your life that's a choit v'lo yaver, so your wife will plan around it. She'll say, okay, so now go to the minyan in order for you to have enough time to help out with bedtime. Okay? But if it's something that's not benafshechahu, you like to learn Rambam when you have time, then, or you like to daven, it's a nice thing to daven with a minyan. Then, all of a sudden, when she needs to put the kids to sleep and do a smachli, when you want to go daven with a minyan, this is not something you do. It's something you like to do. So Zay Mevater, something you like, and help me put the kids to bed. Okay? And therefore, you have to make things real in your life. That means you have to make sure that a chassidische Farbrengen is real in your life, for her to appreciate it and to make place for it and want you to join. Okay? And once you have emes in your life, then it's possible to bring her on board that even things that aren't rooted in your life, she should be a support. Because she knows you're working on it, but that's b'tnai that you're real. You're not on two different teams. You're trying to impress her, and you're Zokstazei, she wants to prove you fakert. She's not going to be a Ezer. She's going to be a Ezer Kenegdoi. She's not on the same team. She's not trying to help you. Masha'enkin, if you're real, and you say, this is what I'm shaykh to, this I try, and you're open, then Ajaba, when it's hard for you, she'll help you. She'll try to help you get on board, and she could be the biggest support not only in your begashmias, but also beruchnias. Pasha, to help you in your avodas Hashem, and fakert, you want to grow together. It's not just something that, this is who I am, this is what I do. She wants to help and see to it that she can help support you and grow together. But again, the yisoid is emes, and the yisoid is that we're here for each other. Sorry. Let me just close this, sorry. Now, some may ask, what happens if my wife is asking of me things that are not b'kana echad with my avodas Hashem, or with what I want to be busy with? Okay? Never make her on the separate, she's against the Eibishter, okay? That's first of all, never do that. Never do that. You don't want to be mamis chas v'shalom, and it's not a healthy thing to do. But what I would say is that what you should know is, I'm going to bring a story of Henry Kissinger, and then I'll bring a story, L'havdol Avdol to the Tzemach Tzedek. Just let's say, I just heard Rabbi Gans Chazadis. The Secretary of State of America, Bismanai, in the time of after Melchem Shesh Sayamim, was Henry Kissinger. He was a Yid, and he pushed that Eretz Yisrael should give back Sinai. At some point, the Golda Meir was over here, the Prime Minister, and she confronted him, and she said, Hayitachin, you're pressuring me. You know how strategic it is. You know how much value Sinai has to us, to Eretz Yisrael. First of all, Pashat Sakanas Nefashis, of a buffer zone, and how much money and how much value this is. It's an asset. How could you pressure me to give back Sinai? So he said to her, I'm not pressuring you to give back Yerushalayim, because I know that's not negotiable. You're never going to do that. I'm pressuring you Sinai. Why? Because that's negotiable, right? Okay? And Lahavdil elf alfei ribi ribavis chilukim ravdalas. I mean, as I zog nafayid, the Tzemach Tzedek. Someone once told the Tzemach Tzedek, my wife is pushing me. She doesn't let me tune avodas Hashem. She doesn't let me. So the Tzemach Tzedek responded, Isha ksheira oiser etzayin baila. Isha ksheira tut was the man will. She does what he wants. Elamai, she knows what you really want. Ashal Kain, so you have to, it's an avodah to first of all be pnimi, and it doesn't mean everything has to be emes lamitasa the way it is, in Atzilus. But even being real about the fact this is something you're working on, and taking her as a partner to try to work on it, it shouldn't be mufrach to sit down mizman l'zman and have a farbrengen with your wife, right? To sit down, you're both partners. And the time you invest this, half an hour, the Rebbe every day, like Hanachas Tefillin, so that could be a tall order for some of us. But the time you're investing to get on the same page and to think how we grow together. And then it's fine if you're not always up to that standard, because you're real about that also. You're not showing a facade. But if she knows there's real substance there, there's kavod. And if you earn that respect, you really have a partner. You really have backing. And that's why shalom bayis is that critical. I'm going to share a story that would describe a little bit of how to get your wife on the same page, and primarily how not to do it in regards to your avodas Hashem, your shlichus. Okay, there's nothing I could do without my wife being on board. I'm here now, right? I'm here any night that every shir, whatever shir it is. She has to believe and she has to support. She's home with the kids, right? And you have to appreciate that. And if you appreciate that, so then she knows that you're really being makriv. It's not just you're dropping the work on her. But back to our inyan. I want to bring an example of how not to get her on the same page, okay? I had two mechonachim that were getting married. And one of them, I told them the following story. I had a chaver, two friends, that both of them, as tmimim, as bachrim, they would daven late on Shabbos. Bisa passed, right? They learned chassidus, they davened slowly, they came on later. Then they're getting married, so one of them decided, ich gehe ihr Oisleiner, wie sie zet Ois 11 von a chassid. Everyone's waiting, Shabbos, Sheva brachas, and I'd sit to make his statement. Okay? And obviously you could imagine what she went through, Nabach. And he made his statement, but since that Shabbos, he's like clockwork at home. So he can't Oisleiner. Saying the Freunds, they cannot. Then there's a different person that decided he wants to get his wife to appreciate his davening barichas. He wants her to appreciate the fact that he stays by her bringing. So Shabbos Sheva brachas, he asked her if it's okay to stay a little bit later. It came a half an hour, and he said, you should know that Altzbach I used to stay a lot of hours. Today I stayed a little bit longer. And he shared with her what he learned chassidus. And he showed her that when he stayed by chassidus Farbrengen, he was a different person. They Farbrengen about this inyan, he chazed it over, gelat mit them. And he brought a situation that she appreciates when he davens barichas. She knows that her lichten hecher when he davens barichas, or when he goes to chassidus Farbrengen. I mean, not every Farbrengen is picture perfect, like not every, right? But he comes back inspired. He feels like he did the right thing for starters, right? Chassidus Farbrengen can ufton. And she encourages him. There's a time in life when you'll be tired. There's a time in life when life happens, when it's pashat shver. And when she tasted that, there's a point that she'll tell him, no, it's a shayin zeit, that you could take a little time off, go earlier, come back later. Okay? I'll tell you from me personally, my wife knows, I'm telling you the emes, my wife knows that when I'm till here, I need a day in yeshiva. That's what I need. I need a day in yeshiva, that's all I need. And I'll go to Westchester, to Queens, a full day. I need Seder Chassidus till night Seder at night. I get permission to ask Neichit. And at some point, you know, it's already years, I'm not the Zeit. And she's the one that says, I think it's kedai for you to go to yeshiva. I think, you know what, take off time. You have to get your wife to appreciate the emes. It's not a facade. But afal pikin, it's an investment in your own avodas Hashem, much like it's an investment in, obviously, as I said, l'chatchila, and I'm going to repeat it, miroiv chashivusay, you could come into a house and cut in the ear what the yachas between the husband and wife are, and it's scary that it's an even abaychin to much deeper than just over here. It's behind closed doors that you could feel mamish, that the avra in the house is based on the kesher. Now it's not picture perfect. There's always struggles, befrat in our day and age. Besides the mibachutz, there's also bayis, and there's kol minei financial issues, and it's not easy. It's not easy. The Am Yisrael plaktzich, and the Eibishter helped. But you should just know that any investment in that direction is pashut investing in your kinder, in your own shlichus, in pashut what you need to get done, and in your avodas Hashem, and in your future when you won't have time. Now, but what you really need to make sure that you're not on two different teams, and you want to teach her what your avodas Hashem is. That's not what it's about. And you definitely don't want to be in a situation that she wants to show you that she's right and you show her it's right. That's not how you would ever believe that a shliach would get people in his Chabad house on board, right? by proving them that, and to a certain degree, it's your shlichus in life. Your mishpacha is the biggest matana the Eibishter gives you, for you to be mashpia on them. And if the Rebbe says it's as chashav as putting on tefillin, and if I understood richtig from the Friedrich Rebbe, if it's as chashav that half an hour is putting on tefillin, so putting on tefillin is nishkein kleinigkeit. As we know, Yichud Shmoyis Baruch, Keneged Alev, Keneged Amayach, this is really at the root of everything, is your investment in your shalom bayis. Now I want to dedicate it, so that's about getting her in the same page in regards to your avodah, things that are valuable to you, things that your shlichus in life. I want to talk for a minute about Hidurim. Okay, there's Avram of Bashkin. I don't know if you know this. Avram passed away. He lived in Bar Park. Shalom Martha's father. He had in his house a picture drawn by Zalman Kleinman. Now there's very interesting, beautiful pictures, like Hendel Lieberman's cats and a chicken. He has many pictures, beautiful pictures. One of them, there's a picture of this little haiska and a ladder, mamish roisha magia shemaima, and there's a psachasid climbing very, very, very high, and a wife and a little kid standing on the bottom looking up. It's the Mogazen. That's here. It's around. Yeah, you should see it, just to be mamchesh this inyan. Yeah. So he used to walk by the picture, and he used to look at it and he would say, "Nadal and nadal, avu krichstu, avu krichstu." If you don't have your mishpacha on your page, if you haven't inspired them, it's lav dafki your hidur. This is not necessarily is this for you. It doesn't mean you don't want to invest in it, but you need to bring them on your page. One of the worst Rishamim that I had in Hidurei Pesach, I remember as Bacher, I was in a house where the father was a Chassidische Yid betachlis, Be'emes Chassidische Yid, and he had, what was going on was the whole mishpacha knew there's separate food for him. Okay, they were peeling tomatoes for him and peeling everything, peppers and urgikes, everything was peeled for him. And it was the feeling I got. I remember I was a bacher. The feeling I got there was like like in America they were like, this is the Zayda from Europe, Was hast du von them? Was hast du von Hidurim? If your family looks at it like a burden, looks like you have to bring them on the same page. If you can't get them to appreciate, I'm not saying sinishta hidur, I'm not saying not to do it, but it has to be a goal by you that anything that's dear to you, and again, I don't want this to sound, I'm saying this is across the board. I don't want this to sound for far-fetched hidurim. Whatever for you is important in avodas Hashem, for you to be authentic, you want your family to appreciate that. You want your kid to be able to say, you know what we eat on Pesach? We're Mahad this. You want them to be proud of it. You don't want them, understand? And that's part of Pashat, getting them on board. So krichen hoich, like in that picture, and you're frying your kinder are looking up, they're trying to figure out, So amol fleck zayin to say that, I should say that. By Chassidim fleck to amol zayin, and there's an expression of the Rabbi, I haven't seen it inside, but I've seen it quoted by Barei Samcha, that part of the tikkun of our doir is to be metaken the union of shalom bayis in previous generations. Previous generations, there was a zahanacha, yaziv avas ishter bonov, and it's a klippa, And the emes is that in today's day and age, Ken Zayin Satzatan, with the fact that the Rebbe says, Mishtechen beim Shvel, that not only Nekev Ateres Bailo, right? Nekev Tzoiviv Gever, and she helps you in your Avodas Hashem. She's able to help her. She's still a Mekabel, but once she's Mekabel from you and your Taka Gist Iber Vudu Halst, she'll help you. She'll help you in a much deeper way that you were able to achieve on your own. It's worth every ounce of effort in this direction, etc. So B'kitzur, you have to get them to appreciate. And you don't gain anything by being mahader if they look at it like a oil al tzavareim. And if this is said b'chlal, kol shkem kal v'chomer, if this is in Hidurim in regards to the mitzvah, in which case you could fall under the category of mevatel oinasa. If you get her to this, if she mishadalta, if she wants to be together with you, and because of your hidurim, she doesn't want, it's mamish mevatel oinasa. You're infringing on much farther than just a nice idea of having her on the same page. So, Okay, there's one more thing I would really like to debunk, and this is in regards to there's how we split the work in our house. Okay, I want you to know this is a word that Rabbi Heller. I would point out I discussed this year and with a few more before I gave this year, but this is an akud that Rabbi Heller pointed out many a time. Okay, men and women are not equal. They're partners. They all work for the family. She cleans and washes the kelim and clothing and cooks for you, and you learn and daven and work for the house. And you care about what she's doing. And if you're able to help, kol achai. And then she knows that what she's doing is as important for you. You need to avoid the American lifestyle of where we're equal partners over here. You do and I do and everyone has to. You have to bring yourself to a point. I mean, obviously you have to care, and if you're able to help, she'll know that you care about what she's doing and appreciate her work. If when you're able to, you taka invest and help. But if you cultivate that approach that what you're doing is for the Mishpacha, and what she's doing is for you. You appreciate. It's not pshat. Okay, you do that. That's your part of the work. This is my part of the work. I work for a living. You watch for a living, and okay, each one is going to do their part. It's not two roommates. Rachmana litzlan. It's Amerikanish zach. We're both. She's doing it for the house. You're doing it for the house, and what she's doing is important to everybody. And you have to express that and appreciate that. And what you're doing has to be kentig. It's also for the family, not just the gelt that you're bringing home, but also your avodas Hashem is for the family. So she doesn't feel at any point that you're davening on her cheshbon. How can you be davening on her cheshbon? You're davening for her, because this is how a Yiddish shtub ferzich. Okay, that's the tzir of a Yiddish shtub. They both work. She's the akeres bayis, the ikar of the shtub, and she's oiser etzayin baila. Because baila is taka the mashpia and her husband, so it's an okay, and therefore, not always does it mean that you need to be ready to cook or to bake if you know how kol achai, but otherwise you have to be ready to ask how her day was and listen, and then listen, and then listen and take interest, like we said at the beginning. The second you reach that point, she gets the nakuda. What she does is important for the house. It's not just you gave her work and she feels 1 second. It's not equal. Why what you doing? You're sitting in koil drinking coffee, okay? Let's just do it. You're working, whatever you're doing. It's not that way. We're doing it for each other, and that you demonstrate by caring, by asking, by helping. But that way you avoid a pitfall of comparing. What you're doing is easier. Why should you do this and why should I do that? Maybe I should go learn. I mean, Beis Medrash L'Nashim is a wonderful thing, and our community has Beis Medrash L'Nashim, and it's gewaldige Zach. It's the Eibishter hat geholfen that our Freuen don't want to go a Libere Kanya, and they don't want to come to Yom Tif without Teichen, and this should be it is elementary to a younger man, to a Yid also, to a Chassid, but you want to make sure that there's no comparing going on. It's not pshat. This is what a Yiddish Freud tut for the shtub. And this is her shlichus. The Rebbe once said, as a yingel veint, and he has a dirty diaper, the Rebbe didn't use mamish, this lashon. Atzmos, it's in a winkel, and when she's doing her avodah, she's mamish. This is miyachid yichudim for her. Okay? And that's taka what it is. She puts in the tzir that a Freud like the rein staka before she makes food. These are things that she's giving to the house that will never... You'll never be able to give, and you really have to appreciate it. It's not a din and dibur. It's nicht as nova, right? It's a din and zog. It's not. You have to appreciate. It's not and you have to invest time in it. If you don't appreciate, then you invest the time to think about it, and on what it affects the. Okay, so now I'd like to move on to the next part, the part that has to do more with Hashkafa. Why is Hashkafa Negeya? Why is the outlook Negeya? And the reason, so the basic is, you should just know that it affects the way the guf is receptive. And therefore your Hashkafa is mashpia on the guf, bichlal. But what I would say more than that is a Yid's perspective on the mitzvah is that it depends eber werd grub zu nicht. Okay? The Torah's way of describing a person's need or the mitzvah itself, we know by Yosef that kimas halachem asher oichel, Rashi learns, lechem, okay? It's referred to as lechem. And just like food, and it's important to note, the Rebbe suggested that chsanim learn before they get married, and there's some that learn before, every time they're together, a little bit of Reishis Chachma. A key part in Reishis Chachma, from the 3 prakim the Rebbe suggests to learn, is about Taivas Achila, because it's very similar. A person eats. What will decide if he evert grub and he loses his chush in hechers or not is his approach. If he thinks, when he's sitting down to eat, why does the Eibishter want us to eat? Like the Rambam says, we just had it in Rambam, haben koyach din the Eibishter, to serve the Eibishter, have koyach for Lavidase Yisbarach. Chassidus, he's thinking of a much broader vision, right? Chassidus teaches us even broader than just your avodas Hashem. The nitzoitzis, you're being mila, the whole oilam. Okay? The eating is a different eating. It's not makshim. It doesn't mean you don't feel. It doesn't mean you don't taste. It doesn't mean you have fliglach and yivesta malach. It just means that the difference between klippas noiga to kedusha, right? That's what happens with food. As I state, that if a person eats l'shem shemayim, his koyach, what's going through his veins, is the nefesh lekis, the hergish of nefesh lekis, and b'meila the food he's mila the food. And if he's just eating because that's what he wants and that's what he appreciates, that the lack of his kavana, that's what defines it as not only is magshim and makes him grub, but that what defines it as klipas noiga, the other side. Alamai, he's able to be milet. This is basics about food. In regard, and this is everybody knows. Al derech zeh is what the Baal Shem Tov says that evim gam tzmeim nafshem bem tisatov. Right? We say it in every Erev Shabbos. We're talking about Yerdei Yam Bani, is the 4 arbot tzrichim lehoidos, the capital tilim that we say before mincha, hoidu. So over there it says evim gam tzmeim nafshem bem tisatov. People that are hungry and thirsty and their heart cleaves to them. The Pashta Pshat is their mom is going out, the hunger and thirst. The Baal Shem Tov learns that Rabbi brings it in the Chana Sechah, Rabbi brings it more than once, that Re'evim gam tzmeim, when a person he's hungry and thirsty, why is he hungry and thirsty? He thinks, why is he hungry and thirsty? Because Tamar will ask and will trinken. The truth is, says the Baal Shem Tov, nafsham bem tisatav. It's really his neshama yearning to be mile netzaitzis. And the same applies to the approach to the mitzvah. Okay? If a person thinks about why he has this necessity, that itself makes that achila a ruchnistic achila and coming from kedusha. And I don't want you to think it's not practical. Okay, it's like the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, when a person sits and learns, the Alter Rebbe brings kavanas that a person should think, and then the Alter Rebbe says if you think about it before, and you stop mizman lizman in the middle of limud Torah, so then you're yaitza. That's the Alter Rebbe. And therefore, there's certain kavanas that you have before that are negea. Okay? So having this hashkafa is critical. And noticing, the Eibishter created, it's from the most powerful koiches the Eibishter put in a person is this devik, so to speak. This b'hoyu l'basar echad, this ratzon to be together. Why did the Eibishter create that? Okay? And the Eibishter, obviously, even though there's not allowed to be gilu cheba barabim, etc., afal pikin, everybody knows in Kodesh HaKadoshim, the kruvim or ma'urim zebazah, and after from there the kol yotzim bein kruvim. So it's incumbent upon us to understand and to appreciate that why we have the tzorich to eat. Nafsham bem tisatav, because we're supposed to, we should be being mile netzaitzis. Al derech zeh, why does the Eibishter give us this ratzon? It's something the Eibishter gave. And Rabbeinu Yoina says, a famous Rabbeinu Yoina, very powerful Rabbeinu Yoina, that a hechrech lo yiguna v'lo yeshubach. Something that's muchrach, that's embedded in nature, it's not good, it's not bad, it just is. It doesn't help to say it's good or... Now you can add the ratzon, but it's not bad inherent. Okay, Yidden don't hold a zay. So people that... in this booklet, between the Maram Kaimis, you'll find saying the Ban. I'm saying Sharak Dusha and the Ravid and Balei Nefesh, that it's a Maisa Kodesh. Okay? And the Eibishter embedded in nature. Now we have to think how we will do it in a way that's appropriate and befitting for the Eibishter. But I do want to point out, some people look at it as Megod, and you have to know it's Nish. It's not Bastir to the Eibishter, it's from the Eibishter. And therefore, once you understand this and you know this is something the Eibishter created, so you can understand, if you look at the first page, page 3, the Rebbe talks about precious not being appropriate in our time. Okay? We're not mekubalim. Things like before Chatzois, after Chatzois, there are hechre and neshamas that are nimshach. So if you're 15 minutes before Chatzois, kannst du warten. But otherwise, the Rebbe pointed out, it's not, this precious is shaloi b'mkoimo, and the Rebbe says it can come, Rachman al-Tzlan, on cheshbon of being nichshal, etc. So these two letters that you see over here from Igros Kodesh, because the Eibishter embedded it in us. So I mentioned was that in Given Shayach, and maybe there are still people that are Shayach. You ask you mashpiyah, but be very, very weary about that, because it's working against the teva that the Eibishter gave, and there are people who stein hecher from teva. Okay, what I would point out is that even if the Indian of Chatzos doesn't exist, but one of the kavanas, more nigladik, is that there shouldn't be people around. So you don't have Hasachadas. It's a time that you're focused on each other. And b'meila, to have a phone in your bedroom, there are other people there. They just are. Okay? Maybe they're not standing there, but in your mind, did this person answer? Did that person get back to me? I still need to, what was that? These type of thoughts. Other people exist there. This is a point in life that a person is there, just they have to be thinking of each other. As the Yusewitz is marchiv, and you have in the booklet, you'll go through, that their kavanas, their thinking, the tzir of each other, that creates kinder that are gebenched. Begashmias, Sheina, and Gezunta, and Beruchnias, heilige kinder. So that's what the Eibishter wants. So this is a real thing when we're saying, leave your cell phone out of the room. It's B'nai Tmura. I'm not going to go through the B'nai Tisha Midas. It has it over here as well on one of the pages. But B'nai Tmura, saying if you have young couples over on Shabbos, you don't put them facing each other. It's nothing to do with Shabbos also. I'm saying you don't put a young couple in front of another young couple that this person's husband is looking at another person's wife. Tutas nicht. A person has to, this is even worse for people that have seen certain things, and then when they're together, they're picturing other machshavas. So say that the Eibishter has a world for people, for everybody, and the person has to let it go. A person that can't pressure himself. You can't be a malach. Can't be, but being mitzayah, the things that we'll describe onward are a chiyuv, and as much as we can prepare ourselves to eliminate anything any distractions, is a chiyuv. I would point out also, for example, this is an extreme example of b'nei snua. It doesn't mean that chas v'shalom, if you had an argument, so that's it. You have to be able to put things on the side. It's a necessity like bread, and b'meila you have to eat l'shem shamayim. You have to be able to put your life on hold, even if you have disagreements, and be there in ganzen. And I want to tell you, there's a lot of things that are very small, and they shouldn't get in at what's the yisoid of your house, at the devek of what ish v'isha, the way the Eibishter describes it. Dafka azoi, his masha shchinasei alein. There's the ish, the Gemara and Saita, Daf Yud Zayin is brought over here also. That ish v'isha zachu is shchina shrui b'neim, and sometimes petty things, you shouldn't let them get in the yisoid. Imagine the yisoid, the foundation of your house, to get it in the middle. So you have to be able to leave it. It's not a time, the discussion before is not a time to solve a conflict. You could do it outside of your room, where you definitely have to dedicate time if there's bumpiness, and there always will be. And you also have to know how to put it on the side. And then it's not chas v'shalom like b'nei snua chas v'shalom. Okay. Now, I want to point out, the mitzvah is meant to be an outcome, an expression of a connection. It's by men sometimes the teva is that it brings a connection. By Freyin, it's an expression of a connection that you have with her. And b'meila for them is much more nagia da'achana, and that's where there's a chiyuv of piyus. It's interesting from where it's learned. I've seen those that learn that from Brias Ha'olam, that it says that Adam Rishon, you have it on page 8. So we have that Vayikra Adam Shemes L'chol Behema L'oif HaShemayim L'chol Chayis Hasada L'Adam L'motza Ezer Kenegda. He couldn't find Ezer Kenegda, and then Vayapel Hashem Alakim Tardeim Al Adam Vayishan. They put him under a heavy slumber, and he slept. Vayika Chacham Tzaloisav. He took one of his sides, as Rashi says. V'yiskar Bas Tachtena. He took out, whether it's a rib, nishta rib, and the Eibishter closed its place. Vayiven as Hashem Alakim as Atzela Shalachim and Adam leisha. Vayivel Adam. The Eibishter built of it. Rashi says kibinyan, and the Eibishter brought her to Adam. Vayomer Adam, and Adam Rishon expressed himself, and he said, Zoisa Pam Etzem Atzamai. Finally, he saw her. He found an Ezer Kenegda. He said, this time it's Etzem Atzamai, bone from my bone, Ubasam Ipsari, flesh of my flesh, and therefore Lezoisi Kara Isha. She was taken from a man. So there are those that learn that this Vayomer HaAdam, he was saying it. He was saying it to her. Or she definitely heard. He wasn't talking to the Eibishter. He didn't need to tell the Eibishter where he... This is a piyus. For her it's nergeya, and part of your mitzvah, your whole oinas, your chiyuv to her. Okay? That's Yiddishkeit. Okay? The chiyuv is for her, and when a person, bichlal b'meshech, the mitzvah, if he's thinking of what's for her, how he can help her more, how he can get her to be more involved and appreciate, etc. Das allein edel tois. The ava, if it's an expression of love, das edel tois. It's not just chas v'shalom, something you want to enjoy. It's an expression of ava. That feeling itself, edel tois. It's not it's brought in Rishonim. It's brought by the Ravid. It's brought by all those. Reishis Chachma. It's brought in Rabbi Yaakov Emden Siddur, which is later. And after this, it says Al Kain Yazav Yishis Avivis Imar B'Davak B'Ishtav Ereil Basar Echad. That after this, on the heels of this type of, so to speak, piyus, but on the heels of this understanding, so the Eibishter created this devek. Okay? And as the pasuk continues and says, V'yushnei marum v'lo yizbay shashu, because be'etzem, it's not a davar that there's what to be in his bayis from. Be'etzem. Done. I heard in this context of what we're describing, that the mitzvah is really an expression of a connection, of a relationship, and not just the ma'aseh b'fnei atzmai. I just heard Rabbi Gans told me a murderdik thing. He said he saw an older couple. The husband was 90 and the wife was 89 years old. Older Yiddish couple already built doiris of mishpachas, and they were old. They're way past hormone years. And he was waiting for a procedure or something. She sat down near him and held his hand. He was blown away. They built a mishpacha together. It's not about this kleinus. I'm saying it's much deeper. The Eibishter created that. The mitzvah helps them bond, but you should know that the shutfus is way deeper than that. It's a conduit. It helps, but be'emes, they're shutfim together. They've not only built a mishpacha, they have a life shlichus together. The way the Zohar describes the kla gufa, it's you have to appreciate that, and you have to realize that it's far deeper than the ma'aseh. The ma'aseh is a conduit, is a way that Eibishter gives us to connect in a very deep way. Okay. And being that, again, for her it's an expression, so obviously, as you can well imagine, being that for her it's that nageya, there's a chiyuv of piyus, and it's brought clearly. You read it inside. Rabbi Yaakov Emden brings the chibuk and nishuk and ma'anga, etc., etc. As I'm not going to go into detail over here, but that's why we have this booklet here. This is like a tikkun lel shvuas for you, okay? Instead of you having the whole Rabbi Yaakov Emden Siddur and having the whole Bali Nefesh L'Raivid and going through the whole Reishis Chachma, this has from each one a Yisoid, and it has it translated to English. And I'm going to go through a few of what they discuss in order for you to get a taste, but you should definitely expand and not leave it at here. I'm just going to say a Maisa. This is a Maisa that's going mipi hashmua between Chassidim, and I'm going to say it anyways. I'm going to say there. Pesach Mal Stavker, from the Grest Chassidim with Alter Rabbi, he had a cousin of Misnagid. So I heard Rabbi Blazer Lichtenstein told this to me. I don't know if he wanted it to go public. I don't know if we're going to keep this online. So it was enough gemina. He had a cousin that was a Misnagid. He always stayed in his house and was looking for. And if you dreizich for long enough, the kitzur, once he saw him in the middle of the day, he kissed his wife. Aha! He got him. So the Pesach said, and the Pesach was in Kenim Advarim, the Pesach was a Bal Madreg. The Rebbe Rashab describes like neshamas coming to him, and he sent him to different tzaddik, to Rebbe Hillel Paracher for tikkunim. He said the chiluk zwischen mir und dir is azoi. Du kusht dein Freu because you want something from her. You want something from her. I'm doing it because that's what she needs, Pashit. Understand? It's really kier. You really have to kier. It's really your shlichus to be mesamcha. As I said at the beginning, it's ultimately investing in you, in your shlichus, in your avodas Hashem, in your children, in your house, in the atmosphere, and everything. But at the end of the day, it's caring Pashit. I'm going to say, if I'm ready on this Nakuda, there's 3 Chassidim that wrote to the rabbis, mamish like. Now we could close this, but 3 Chassidim wrote to the Rabbi that they want a tikkun for the fact they have a gishmak. I'm not going to get, one of them was mamish. So the Rabbi answered 3 different answers. I know this with names. People, the Chassidim know this, it's around. The Rabbi said to one, the Rabbi, okay, that's not shaykh l'roiv. Someone was shaykh to the inyanim of the kotetera, k'fay shade. The Rabbi said one thing. But the other 2, one of them, the Rabbi said, "Vos arter the hosta gishmak in Avos Yisrael." Gishmak in Avos Yisrael. Therefore, the Rebbe said, "Was arter the hosta gishmak in a mitzvah." Similar, not the same. But the nakuda is, you're thinking about the other. You're here for a bigger purpose. You're here, and if you have a gishmak, that's a problem. Doesn't mean you become a malach. And therefore, I'm going to say this. Till now, I'm just giving a room. I want to just be magdir. One of the things that, we are practical people, and we're not the grest chassid, and everybody works from where he starts. Okay, everybody. The most important thing is, and this is shabbat l'chol nefesh. You don't have to be a big bal madrega. You don't have to have big kavanas. When you come to a mitzvah and you frame it as a mitzvah, you wash your hands before, you say Mizmor David, which I heard once has to do with the fact that we bring kinder to the Welt. What do you know what's going to be with them? You're relying on the Eibishter, right? Framing it as a mitzvah. So people put tzedakah before, learn a little bit Reishis Chachma. That itself, it doesn't matter what happens afterwards. And you framed it as a mitzvah, and so you have a gishmak and a mitzvah is a problem. Gishmak and Avos Yisrael, like the Rebbe said. But this step is critical. And this is also, it's shabbat l'chol nefesh. Everybody can do. It's not talking about, but it's not chas v'shalom, a person saying, you know what, if I'm not shaykh to zelcha dargis, so I'm not shaykh to keep my machshava the whole time and think it's fleeing azay, so b'meila, it's irrelevant what I do, the kids are getting, whatever. It's an ishtazay. This is a frame that Pashat puts a person in a headspace that makes it kedusha, makes it a mitzvah. It's that thought. And we're not talking about machshava. That's even just at the beginning. That defines the hachanis. Okay? And hachanis, just going back to being that it's your chayva for her, and for her the hachanis are nageah. So examples for hachanis are any of the harchakis, eating together, eating together, whether it's Bechlal, I'm saying besides Gdor Legimashim Kareves, Tiburei Cheba, all the examples that we learned earlier, Achila V'Shtia together, Meziga, Mezigus HaKois, Shalat Kois Shel Bracha. These are things these are all examples that are Aser, Bizman Nidasa, and Shimon Akim, because they bring Kirva. Now that is what brings for a woman, Kirva, and it's our Christ to do to prepare. But then there's the Chi of Oina. And the Chi of Oina is your achrayis to her. And that thought, again, like we said earlier, is ma'adin. There are halachas to make sure it's not behemish, it's not ma'ase behema. And those are the inyanim that are brought in Shulchan Aruch. I'm not going to spell them out, but suffice it to say that anything brought in Shulchan Aruch is a din. Okay? Anything brought in Shulchan Aruch is a din, even if it's described as with a reason. Elamai, if there's place for heterim, you have to ask a Rav for a heter, and it's important to ask, because if you don't ask, then it never became mutter for you. And if you do ask, it's nishat. But this is in Siman Reish Mem. Even HaEzer, it's Geshrib Nandish. Even HaEzer is between, there's two verta I heard chazed by Rabbanim about this. That first of all, Even HaEzer is between Inyane Gerushin and Kiddushin, that's when it's relevant. And Tzveiten says that's written for Rabbanim. This is Oira Chaim. The Begvi Melept is Azoi. If you need, you ask a Rav, and a heter is not given, and but when a heter is given, the Rav has the siyata d'shmaya. Given that, when it's done in a way that the maisa itself is a richtige maisa, then the fact that a person has a no is not a problem. And like we said, now besides the tnuos that we said are brought in Reish Mem, there's also Bnei Tesha Midas, and those are given because the goal is they have to be focused on each other. And from Mitoch Lav to Shemei Hein, that a person has to be totally there, his mind is focused either on her, or to be Mitzayir her tzir, or tzir of a tzaddik, as the Gemara describes from Amoraim, that Rabbi Yochanan would sit by the Shar Beis HaTvilah, she was Banim Shpirin Kavasi, and these are tzir of a tzaddik. The Shlah brings to think about Oisius. On page 16, the Rekeach says the Tainug is a ruchnistic Inyan and is in place. And the Simcha is Nagia. You see the Shita Mekubetzes on the Gemara of Saita Irvin, of Kuf Amad Beis. Rav Shmuel ben Achmeni says that any Freud, Shetevas, Bail Dvar Mitzvah, will have sons that even in Moshe Rabbeinu's doyer, there weren't such children. If she's misava to be together with him, which obviously, like we said, it has to be invested in. She should want to look up to you and should want to be together with her husband. But if that's the situation, so then even in Deir Shel Moshe, what's the makar? It says Va'ekech Rosh Shiftechem Anashim Chachamim V'Yidurim, but it doesn't say that Moshe Rabbeinu found Nevoinim, even though at the beginning the Eibishter said Havlochem Anashim Chachamim Nevoinim V'Yidurim L'Shiftechem. So that Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't find Nevoinim. But by Leah, she came towards Yaakov and Schor Scharticha, she misaves l'mishka batzadik, and that's why the Gemara says she was zeicha to be buried with him, because she was misava to be together with him. It's not a chisaron, it's a maila. It says from Mibnei, so it says Mibnei Yisachar Yoyde Bina Leitim Ladas Ma'ayas Yisrael Rashem Masayim V'Cholachem Al PM, that everybody would do according to Bnei Yisachar, which is from Leah's descendants. And it says Yoidei Bina. Okay, they had Nevoinim came from her. That means if she's misava to be together with him, then they have kluge kinder. So a person obviously has to cultivate such a matzah that she should look up, and together with that, that creates a home, a loving home, a home where kids are happy to be, a home where kids look forward to come home to, which is in today's day and age, that a kid in one ride from his house to school sees what in a shtetl collectively in 40 Jahr schmutz. You have to have a strong base at home, that the child wants to be at home. This is the place where he wants to be. And therefore, creating this loving environment, that's what the Eibishter wants, and that's where the Eibishter wants to be. And if chas v'shalom, the Eibishter is missing, so ish and isha are eish and eish, like the Gemara says. Spoke about the simcha they should have. The Shita Mekubetza says it says ki kamrinon. When do we say l'chorah? We know that it's a chisaron for a lady to be tevas. So what does it mean that she came towards him and schor scharticha? So the Gemara says later on ki kamrinon the maratze aratzuya kameh. She's meratza herself. She's meramis. As we know, she's miskashetas, etc. So the Shita Mekubetza, brought on page 12, says that brings that their union will be mitoch simcha and mitoch kach banav yafim. Brought also before. And bekitzer, the simcha of the mitzvah is negeya, is critical. And again, like we said, the bischar of this investment of having proper machshava. And again, it's not about having fleeing in Shemayim and being hecher from. You have to be there. Your partner will feel if you're with her or not. Together with that, to be mitzayer oisius, and if your mind drifts, to bring back to be mitzayer tzir, Rabbi Nasino, to be mitzayer her panim, and to be besimcha, to be mesameach her is a doiraisa, and it's gizun pashut for your whole family. I think what I said does justice. I think we understand the chshivos in investing in this, and the skafi over here is not nishtzutan as much as it is the way you do it. So nish zayin wegen sich, so zayin wegen atzveit. It should be a chushin avas Yisrael, and when that's around, then it's not only senet nishtavek segitzu in your avodas Hashem, and as I'll finish off by saying today's a very special day. We've seen before Volatzin, it has over there all the days that we don't say Tachnun. The Alter Rebbe brings from Rosh Chodesh Sivan throughout the Yemei Tashlumin, we don't say Tachnun. So Mele Rosh Chodesh, Veisim for us, it's Rosh Chodesh. And Gimel and onward, Veisim Roichet, because it's Shlosh Tzimei Agbala. What's Yom Beis Sivan, which is today? It's called Yom HaMiyuchas. It's the day that the Eibishter said, Koysomer al-Beis Yaakov v'sagid l'bnei Yisrael. And it's the day that the Eibishter chose us as Mamlechas Koyin and V'goy Kodesh. And the fact that there's nothing a Yid does like a Goy. You should never be mitzayer in your mind. You shouldn't allow or entertain the thought that there's something, alatuin. There's nothing a Yid does that's like a Goy. Even a person he saw something, you're not even allowed to look at chayis niskakim. You're not allowed to be mitzvah. A woman has to hide her leil tefillah because you shouldn't be mitzayer a person in such a matzah. There's nothing a Yid does that is like a goy. And b'zeh, we know that mamlach koyin v'goy kodesh, dafka in this area, that brings kedusha. And what I said in a lot of words was that the kedusha doesn't mean you're mufresh and you're not shaykh to these inyanim. It means you do it in an oifen, and you connect in an oifen kodesh, in an edla oifen, that fakert gitzu in your simcha, in your being on one team, you and your Rebbetzin, in a way that develops the tzvois, the tzivos Hashem, as are brought by everybody knows the Gemara, that ben chag ve'asela was stated by Shir Hashirim, that they brought fish and they came ben kikei sloim. Because it finishes off, the Gemara finishes off saying that these were Mamid Tzvais, they were creating the generation that were able to be Mekabel the Torah. And that's the truth. Chachamim, like it's brought in Yaakov, as you see on page 14, you'll learn more barichas, that the Simcha and the Ava that's expressed when you're together, that ensures that the kinder will be Banim, Chachamim, Yerushamayim, and the Tzva'os that will be marching out of this Golos Achron and ushering in the Gula Mitzvah Shlema, take it from Yad Mamish. Shkoyach. Okay. Burachum. Any questions? If any, Oh, so get the shaila. Okay, yeah.
That ton.